Good afternoon, everyone. Sarah Barker with Connect Our Elders, and this is the Empowering Aging podcast. I'm super excited to have with me today Kimberly Whiter, the creator of the Care Colloquium. Thank you so much for being here, Kimberly.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I am super excited for you to share with the audience about your background, what led you to launch the Care Colloquium, and how the conference that you recently did went, and plans for the future. So please just share everything with our audience.
Sure. And great job on the pronunciation. There's been lots of talk about like, how dare you call it something so difficult? I'll just share my story. I feel like it's the most impactful way to kind of talk through why this even turned into a thing. So I originally come from higher education. I was cultivating a career there for a little over 11 years. And part of my work in higher ed was researching and studying interprofessionalism and interdisciplinarism. And so I was working on like, how do people from different professional backgrounds come together to do something amazing, right? And I was at a conference presenting my work on that. Some data I had collected whenever I was working on that, some data that involved students where we were teaching them about that. And at the end of my presentation, a gentleman approached me, handed me his card, and asked if he could consult with me because he was working on a business model that he felt had an interdisciplinary issue, but just felt completely out of his depth on how to handle it. So two important things at this time. I'm pretty rooted in my career path in higher ed and felt very comfortable and had no plans on leaving. I was going to retire at like 95 adjuncting, right? Like this was my end game. And when someone approaches you when you're presenting, especially in like a higher ed setting, and is like, ooh, can I consult with you? There's this like aura of, oh, I've made it, right? So I was super like, yes, please call me. I'm all about, I've done something amazing today. And so they did call. And this was at the beginning of 2019. And what happened is all throughout of 2019, I was consulting, and he and his business partner were working on a business called Elder Care Solutions. And I was learning about what they were trying to solve in care situations, also about caregiving. This was not learned experience for me yet, or lived experience. And so I was listening to these really tough situations that families would get in when they start caring for, in particular, an aging loved one, how incredibly expensive that is, how overwhelming that can be for families, and how they were sitting on some answers, but were just struggling to get it out to the families. And I was like, oh, I can see where this is an interprofessional problem for sure, because the answers are everywhere. There's a lot of different professionals that have an answer, but how do you get them all to work for the best outcome for a family, right? So at the end of 2019, in December, they asked if I would come on and run Elder Care Solutions as its CEO. And I was like, oh, that is so kind. Let me think about it. It was a very quick answer for me. And I remember getting off that call and immediately thinking, like, there's no way I'm going to do that. Like, I have my plan. I'm in higher ed. And within a week, I landed in a care situation. And so I started learning firsthand and experiencing what care really looks like, and how every day my schedule would blow up. There was emergency situations. I was the full transportation person. I was responsible for, taking that person to their doctor's appointments, to their specialty appointments. I was also the holder of the health story because it was traumatic and scary, and they emotionally couldn't like hold that themselves. And so I held that and started navigating through healthcare with them. And I was like, man, if I could be a piece of the solution to what this looks like for people, that just feels like I would be putting out a lot of good into the world, And so I came back and said yes. And so then I left higher ed and started a new career in business, which was completely unknown to me. What we ended up building is I did put an interprofessional, interdisciplinary slant onto this question, like, how do you pay for elder care? Why is it so expensive? Where are the answers? And we now have a very large multidisciplinary solution that brings in the perspectives of financial advisors and elder law attorneys and tax professionals and Medicare, Medicaid, and veteran benefits and life insurance and long-term care insurance and housing wealth experts. So all those answers are coming together in one place, and we start helping families guide and navigate through that terrain, which is just really difficult, time consuming, and full of things that we are not taught. Like we don't know.
Is it that they have an established team, right, that gets assigned to them? So
the
that
team,
way there's not miscommunication, right? Where
right.
there are all these people that do this, but usually they're all separated, right? And
yeah. So to make that where we're not asking a whole bunch of people to connect and collaborate live, we built a piece of technology that brings all those perspectives together and gives clients a written report and says, here's all of your financial strategies. And then their guide is us to say, okay, let's start digging through them, right? Which ones look good? Which ones do you want to toss out because you don't feel like they make sense? And how can we help you connect to the right people so that you can start basically unlocking these things for your different family dynamics, So I was really proud of what we had built, right? And I start putting it out there, and it was not getting used. Like, the families were not coming. And I thought, okay, like, so this is what they call marketing and PR. And this is not something I have education around because, I've been a professor for a while. So I start doing marketing stuff. And so I would, do radio shows or a podcast interview, put an ad in a magazine, like different things. And each time I'd be like, oh, I nailed that interview. That was so good. Okay, here they come. Nothing. It was still crickets.
So I'm so happy that we have you on this podcast right now, because what Connector Elders is all about is leading with proactive education direct to consumers that need to understand that what you guys are doing is available, right? So we need to try to get ahead of these issues and do proactive planning.
Proactive, exactly. Yeah. So I started questioning my ability to run a business. I was really like, am I cut out for this? And I thought back, well, when was the last time I felt comfortable and like I was thriving at what I was doing? And it was, back in higher ed. And so I started thinking through, okay, what kind of things were you doing there? And something that I love about higher education, it's a philosophy that I was bringing forward into my work in business, was you're a part of an ecosystem. You're a part of a big conversation that's going on. There are leaders that are contributing lots of incredible thoughts, and you're paying attention to those narratives and you're a part of those. And I thought, okay, just go do that then, right? So I started looking out for who those people are. And I started reaching out to other people who had founded businesses, were running businesses. And I was just like, tell me what you do. Where are you in this big sandbox that we're playing in? And like, how's it going for you? Because I don't feel like it's going well over here.
And how does it all work together too?
Right. And what happened is throughout the year of 2021, when I was like, okay, I'm on a mission. I'm going to go meet people and figure out what this ecosystem looks like and make sure I'm participating in it. And then also leading into 2022. And what I met one-on-one, just like you and I are sitting down right now, with over 200 people who had founded or were running a business in the care economy. And I learned a lot. So one thing I learned was predominantly, and I mean at like a 95% predominance, these businesses are small or they're a solopreneurship and they're in the startup phase of their business. So we're dealing with, very small teams, sometimes one incredible person who is just trying to get amazing work out there. Also, predominantly we're looking at women who have gone through care situations and had to leave the workforce because of the care juggle, where they were like, can I still work and care? And the answer was no. And they had to leave. And instead of re-entering the workforce, they were like, I'm going to make this path better for people who are coming up behind me. So there's like this heartfelt mission to what they're doing.
It's a purpose.
There's extreme purpose out there. Also, the work is incredible. Like what people are doing is super creative, super innovative, incredibly smart.
Mm-hmm.
The negatives that I found is they were not talking to each other. So these people who are working so hard, doing incredible things, put their life on a completely new mission, a new path. They weren't reaching out and talking to other people who perhaps were doing the same things, And that lack of communication meant that an ecosystem didn't exist. Like,
do you think what are you thinking the reasons are for that? That they
I know exactly why.
Or because they were just so busy.
Yeah, they had their head down. They were working hard, and they were barely keeping their own head above water because everyone's issue was the same as mine. I'm putting out something incredible and also am not getting people to take it up, right? So everybody's just like, how do I solve this problem? And that meant we weren't talking to each other. And so I was either brave or stupid enough, or both, to think that maybe I could start that ecosystem.
Courageous. I think I'm going to use the word courageous.
Courageous. And my goal with it was just to create a space. Like I had already met these people. I trusted when they got in the same space that they would bring the energy. I just needed to create the space, right? Mm-hmm. And so I came up with the Care Colloquium. I very purposely named it that because I didn't want it to be a conference. I wanted it to be a meeting of the minds, which is exactly what it was. I convinced over 100 people to get in their car or get on an airplane and travel a long distance to come to Roanoke, Virginia, and meet up with other people who were just like them, who were starting a business, were running a business, had a care story, were working on a small team, or wearing all the hats by themselves, and just wanted to figure out how to get what they were doing into the hands of the people they were creating it for.
I have goosebumps because I know we had a conversation. I asked you because I wasn't sure how long you had been planning this. And because from the outside looking in, it was so professionally
thank you.
out, the updates along the path. It was super impressive that you pulled this all together.
Thank you so much. And I had an overarching idea. I did pull in incredible brains to help out. So Robin Weeks was on my planning team, and she has been in the care economy for a long time and knew a lot of people and kind of served as that guide to here's some people we definitely need to reach out to and make sure that they're coming. I had a beautiful marketing team that came up with our logo and put the colors together so that we had great branding. And I brought in a professional who could really look at a give back component and how we could bring the community in which we were going to have the event into the event so that we were making an impact because it was going to be in Roanoke, and then wherever it is again will impact that community, right? And then just prioritize creativity above everything. So I wanted panels and think tanks, and we had collaboration stations sprinkled everywhere, which is just a table with 2 chairs, and we built in breathing room in the schedule and said in between, grab somebody, sit down, dive into each other's work, leave here with a collaboration. And people were sitting everywhere and talking and meeting, and I could feel this palpable energy generating. It was so strong that people who weren't part of the Care Colloquium were coming up to me and just what's going on over here? They were drawn into this energy of people that were just so excited to be there. And people just showed up with the right heart and the right minds and just really bought into this idea, like, yeah, we should be talking to each other and we should be collaborating more, and we should be mapping out this space to actually have a true network of people and an ecosystem. So this just like keeps building momentum, right?
So that's my next question, Kimberly, right? So when people make that effort, right, to kind of come out of their day-to-day, their business, and then they went to the Care Colloquium, and there's all this collaboration, what are the thoughts and what's the plan to keep that collaboration going when everybody goes back and they get day and day?
Yeah. And so I had thought through that too. And once I started getting some people who were registered, and we hit, let's say like April or May of this year, you know, and I was like, this is definitely happening. The people who are coming, I already feel like they're going to create something impactful. I need to start thinking already of like, okay, so what happens after Wednesday when this closes down, you know? And it was so fateful that around the same time I met Chris McClellan, who owns and runs the Whole Care Network. And so Chris had a vision with the Whole Care Network to be the dissemination of care stories predominantly through audio media, right? And so what really his big success was building a network full of care-centric podcasts. So there's tons of like hundreds of podcasts on his network that focus on just sharing care stories, helping family caregivers, helping them with self-care or sustainable practices, or just telling the story of caring for someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, and everything in between, like everything. And I started to see a vision where like, okay, the name is right. I already love the name. So we rebranded to the Whole Care Network, where the care economy collaborates. And so we announced on the third day that everyone who had the heart and the vision to show up, either virtually or in person, were automatically part of this new network. So the Whole Care Network is now where we will continue those conversations. We can have masterminds all year round, put like-minded leaders together to work on big problems. Like, we know we need to help working caregivers. So many of them are leaving the workforce. We just have a lot of trouble breaking into that market, breaking into that space. So how can we collaborate and make that an easier place for us to exist and have probably more successful like B2B revenue, right? There's also advocacy that has already, I saw that Zach is watching. He has advocated for an advocacy group very strongly. So one of our first masterminds will be leaders who feel very strongly that they want to get into advocacy. They want to start local. They want to work themselves up into going to Capitol Hill events and making sure that care topics and care policies are getting pushed through. And so we need to like teach each other how to do that. And there's some really great advocates in this group of leaders that are like, they're there already, so they can like mentor and help other people say, okay, come join us, but here's the path to get up to where we are, you know.
It has a mentorship element.
Exactly.
Right. So I love the fact that the continuing collaboration is going to be about, you know, mentally, emotionally, professionally supporting these other people that are in the care economy, but also that directly focused support where it's like, okay, we are on the same path, right? We're kind of doing the same thing. How do we band together to elevate each other? Not to mention the B2B collaboration to help grow each other's business.
Exactly. Yeah. So we will collaborate so that we're growing and we're helping each other, but also this mentorship piece is a big part of where my heart is. So the podcasting will stay, but now if that's something like I've always wanted to have a podcast, we will wrap you in support and say, okay, here's how to do it well. Here's how to monetize it. Here's how to build it into your business practice so it becomes another revenue stream for you, or maybe your only one as you get started, you know. Same thing for other content development, like written content. If you want to write a book, there are leaders in this network who have done that. They can mentor you through that process of getting started and getting your content out there. And then because I've identified they are small businesses, solopreneurships, they are startups, wrapping everyone in business and marketing support. So we're bringing on coaches and consultants that are like business consultants and marketing consultants to say, like, let's take a look at your business practices and make sure you have the right structure. What do you need to do to have sustained operations? How can we make sure that if you're wearing 12 hats to run your business, you can delegate some or manage your time really well? And we just don't want to leave anybody behind. I think care will get better if the businesses who are supporting it are thriving. And right now we're not. So maybe this is a way to get us there.
It's a struggle. And I know firsthand from meeting with many, many home care company owners, right?
Yeah.
From the US for a while now, it's their heart is in the right place, right? And they do a lot of things right, but then balancing it all, or, maybe they don't have a solid understanding of a P&L, right? Like
sure.
I struggle with that part. So teaching those skills, or right, letting them know what vetted resources exist so they can start outsourcing certain elements of their business so they can focus on the areas that they're really good at.
Mm-hmm. And keeping it all very centric to what it looks like to be in the care economy. So marketing strategies that work for other economies don't work here. And that's something we have to orient people to and say, okay, you've been in business for a year and you're struggling, but let's talk through some of the reasons we've identified in the care economy why. But we got to also come up with solutions, so we're going to really try to disseminate those solutions that we come up with by putting our heads together continuously. And that's exactly what an ecosystem should do. It should solve those problems. Yeah.
Now, this sounds like it's direct experience from your education and your higher ed experience in overlying.
Thank you for seeing that. It took me a while to translate it. And so once we got to the part where I was like, I'm going to make a conference / colloquium, I was like, I got that. This part I know, right? So yes, my experience in higher ed, I have 2 graduate degrees in education. Putting together spaces where people can thrive in their learning and they can feel very engaged and connected is an area of expertise for me. And so I'm feeling very in tune and very purposeful all of a sudden, now I'm in a very comfortable space where I can do some really good, right? And I'm able to then take that back to elder care solutions and apply the educational techniques, and the educational marketing is what's working so much better for us. And so educating people on the financial challenges, and then there are solutions out there, but you need help to navigate them. And that's what we're here for. Now it's making sense to families, and I needed to dot the lines. Right.
And I think, presenting it in a way that it makes sense and helping them navigate it. But I really believe we need to start getting the education to families sooner, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like oftentimes by the time a family gets to connect our elders, there's a lot we could have been doing to prepare for the day that has come, to hopefully reduce the overwhelm and the stress that they're feeling by the time that they make it to me,
Sure. Well, I think
how do we know how to get the information to families sooner?
Sure. Well, and there's a language barrier there too, because we are using language amongst ourselves, which is something now we know. We're saying family caregivers, I'm a caregiver support, I'm a caregiver coach, and these families aren't using that language at all. They're like, I'm a daughter who's caring for my mom, or I'm not even thinking about caring until the crisis lands in my lap. And so we need to start immediately, we need the Venn diagram, to get our language to overlap there. So then they start to see oh, that's something for me. I just never knew you were trying to reach me because I wasn't calling myself that,
You're the first person that's ever stated that. That's incredibly insightful, that there is a language barrier between all of us that are in the industry wanting to help and those that we're
trying to help. Right.
Yeah. Communication is everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what types of businesses and professionals are you guys hoping to attract to utilize the whole care network?
Everybody, right? So currently we are 154 members strong. So I think that we're starting off great. We have caregiver coaches and consultants that are holding the hands of caregivers and just saying like, let's go on this path together, and we connect you up to resources. We have people who are developing apps that are trying to help with a multitude of different care challenges, to either come in and help with some educational pieces or come in and promote, you need a circle. You were never meant to do this by yourself. And so let's build this support system around you. We also have bigger companies that have scaled the concierge model. And so, you know, we can learn a lot from them, because some of them have even been in the space longer than other people. And they can say like, here's some waters we've navigated that you need to learn from. And then we have like authors and researchers. So it takes all the minds. And a story I shared in my closing address at the Care Colloquium was in higher ed. One of the other, so of course I was doing the interprofessional and interdisciplinary work, but I was also running faculty development, because if you work for a small college, your leadership role is often like they're going to give you as many titles as possible. And so faculty development is when you're teaching professors how to teach better. So like they are definitely subject matter experts, but how to get all the brilliance in their brain out to the students so that they're learning it really well is not something everyone is an expert in. And so, of course, that's some of the expertise I've developed through my education and my experiences. And I was helping a faculty member who was teaching microbiology, and he was like, my students are not doing great. And normally students, their grades fall on this typical bell curve, you know, so you have like your people that make B's and C's, your people that make all the A's, and your people that are failing. And he's like, everyone's over in the F category, and it's got to be me, right? Like, what am I doing? So he reaches out to his other microbiology peers that are teaching, and they're like, oh, it's just a tough class. Like, this is the weed out class. That's the way it's going to be. And he's like, I do not accept that. And so he starts thinking through like, okay, why might they be having an issue? And he landed on like, okay, wait, look at all these terms I'm teaching my students. Like, they're in Latin, they're crazy long, there's all these names. Even biology by itself has all these new words. It's like teaching them a different language, which led him straight to the language department. And he went over and talked to those professors and was like, how do you actually teach a different language? And they started sharing with him, and he's like, cool, I'm going to bring those back to my class. And his students started thriving. And it's this science and humanities that you would have never drawn the line between the two, but when they merge, like magic happened. So I want the network to also look like that. Like, we're building collaborations in these, like we're creating little supernovas where these unexpected collaborations are happening. And you're like, oh my God, I would have never thought that when they got together, mind blowing.
Right.
So that's why we need different backgrounds and different brains and people that are approaching making care better from different angles.
And figuring out each other's languages just in. So a lot of us, we fall in different areas on the continuum of care, but understanding our languages, but then hopefully being able to come together in one language that we take out to the consumer so they understand.
Which would be so impactful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Miriam, she's
see.
amazing. Miriam with Care Switch. She has a question for you. Are all of the mastermind meetings, all mastermind meetings and in-person events for 2023 mapped out?
They are not. So mastermind meetings will predominantly be happening in the virtual space. We are looking at having maybe some in-person events trickling up to the 2023 Care Colloquium, which has not been determined exactly where it's going to happen. So the first two masterminds that I know we're going to be kicking out in January will be advocacy, how you can get involved in advocacy, and supporting working family caregivers. I think those are two really important ones that we want to get kicked off right away, but you'll be able to join those virtually. So wherever you are, you can connect with people, other leaders, in fact, to start putting your heads together and figuring out the solutions within those spaces.
Mm-hmm. Are you all actively looking for people that want to lead other committees or those masterminds?
Yeah, so I'm calling everyone who is in the Whole Care Network now, so all of those people who attended the Care Colloquium virtually and in person are the founding members of the network, and we're pulling leadership from everyone. So we're gathering right now people who have particular magic in particular spaces, and we'll pull them into the different groups. So masterminds will be led by the leaders in the network. Other aspects that we're building, I'll put like little teams together of people who will be brilliant at making that incredible, and they'll lead it. And so there'll be a lot of delegation of the different pieces, but everyone's so active and they're all making this just something incredible, which I definitely feel the energy of.
So it's an enormous vision, very much a worthwhile and impactful vision. So let's talk about opportunities for sponsorships.
Yeah.
Right? So I find that, with any huge vision, it's always good to figure out how to create sponsorship opportunities.
Absolutely.
Right? So other people in the industry can come in and get involved in that way. So are there any particular types of sponsorships that you guys are hoping to receive?
Yeah, so we've built our packages to be, again, identifying that a lot of businesses in this space are not mature. So they range from $250 to $2,000. So hopefully you can come in a way that is very accessible to where you are in your budgets right now. And you are considered a care leader when you become one of the sponsors. And as a leader, you can get first like denial on a leadership opportunity within the network. So we want to pull you into the leadership of different aspects of it. And then the money will go towards funding, like, $200 will give 4 different business leaders a business consultation. Like, that's how much it'll cost. So you're really like doing some fantastic good. We will share your story on how you developed your business, as well as highlight like initiatives that you have throughout the year. So if you're building something yourself and you want to make sure other leaders know about it, we highlight that for you. And you get complimentary podcasts, interviews to really like disseminate your own information as well.
So types of companies that could be potential sponsors, clearly like a lot of the learning management systems, so LMS, and then agency software. What about home care companies? So maybe
home care companies. Yeah, I like home care companies and home health companies as well, because they work with the families. They become part of that team within that family. They're not there 24/7 most of the time. And so they get what we're trying to do, which is build up that family unit with education and resources and make sure that they have everything they need to thrive as they're caring for an incredibly long time, even when it's an aging loved one. I also think adult daycare centers make great sense because they too become part of this team. And then there's just businesses out there that have a heart for this because their leadership has gone through it. They went through a care journey. And so, if Patagonia and Facebook and Pepsi, if they have a heart for the care aspect of this and want to help get care stories out there and see the businesses coming up thrive, it also makes sense. So I think there's unlimited.
Yeah. And I've been talking about this for a while because if you think about it, years ago, I read this article, and I believe it was an AARP article that was talking about how employees of these large corporations are, their productivity is going down once they start caring for an aging loved one, or they don't accept promotions because they're looking at their life thinking, I've worked all this time. I would love to take this promotion, but I just don't have the capacity to be able to do that. Right.
Absolutely.
And so I know it is starting to happen, but I would like to see it happen more, where these companies are building elder care solutions into their employee assistance programs.
Yeah. And the stories of some of the leaders in the network, like they were the CMO or the CEO or the COO of some incredible company, and they had to abandon their career. So, that these executives are going through care situations and are also sitting back like, can I just keep doing what I'm doing, or do I have to abandon my career? So their stories are everywhere.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Kimberly, what are like 2 to 3 specific things that anybody in the audience today listening live or when they watch this recording, what can we help you with?
That's awesome. So one, if this resonates with you and you feel like I want to be a member of that network, we would love to have you, right? We want lots of people. So currently until January 1st, the entry point is to sign up for the virtual experience of the Care Colloquium, which will never go away. And so you will get access to the recordings that we captured when it happened. The think tanks are still going on. And you can be involved in those conversations as well as when the network kicks off in January, you're in, right? So that's number one. If you are a leader or someone who has decision-making power within a business and you're like, we want to be one of those care leaders or we want to see this go somewhere, let's have a conversation about sponsorship. We want to see you as a care leader too. And we want to disseminate your story as well, which we definitely have the power to do. And then third, just maybe dip your toes in the water and follow us so you can see the Care Colloquium and the Whole Care Network on LinkedIn. That is the space for care economy leaders. We are active there. We are talking and blowing up LinkedIn every day. So that's the best place that you can come and look at us and see what we're talking about and kind of fill us out. I understand that aspect too.
Mm-hmm. So Kimberly, how can people connect with you? Clearly find you on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And then if they want to schedule a meeting with you, what's the best way for them to reach out and do that?
Sure. So definitely LinkedIn, if that feels like an easy entry point. You can also email me directly at Kimberly@eldercaresolutionsinc.com. And I take meetings all the time. So I would love to sit down and talk to you and get to know you and build more friends in the care economy.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you being here with me today. And, Connect Our Elders is all about proactively getting education out to the consumers, right? These families who are dealing with caring for, whether it be a well spouse themselves or an aging loved one. So really appreciate the work that you're doing and appreciate you being my guest today. Thank you.
Sarah, thanks for having me.